Pittsburgh Steeler fans, welcome back to the Scho Bro Show. This is Behind the Steel Curtain. Editor Dave Schofield coming at you. It's Tuesday night. It's just after 9 p.m. It is game week. I am so excited, not just because it's game week, because once again, I get to spend time with my big brother, Rich. Rich, how's it going tonight?
Hey, it is game week. And when you said game week, I don't know if you saw my reaction. My first reaction to that is to go all Ric Flair on everybody out there. Woo! It's game week.
It's game week. I mean, just think how excited we were when it was game week for the Hall of Fame game.
I know.
I mean, and we're hyping and we're like, you should be excited for the Hall of Fame game. You're going to get to see Steelers players on the field and they're going to get to show us what they can do and everything else. And you know, every week it's still exciting. I mean, I'm sorry. The last preseason game was not, and it wasn't because of the way the Steelers played, which was bad, but it was that you knew that they were rising. They were, you know, the more starters were playing, they were playing longer. They get all the way up to that third game, and then it's just a big drop off. It's kind of difficult to be excited about that one, but man, these mean nothing compared to now. It is game week. I mean, is there anything else other than Ric Flair? There's not really much else we can say.
Woo, yes, the Ric Flair woo, man. You just
all right.
It's game week.
Got to be excited. Okay, I know everyone's been saying it. I said it. I don't know for those of you out there listening in podcast land, if you listen to my breaking news podcast from over the weekend, I couldn't break it right away. It took me a long time to be able to pull it together enough to try to do the breaking news podcast on the passing of Tunch Ilkin. I've never had to do this before. I had to pause in the middle of it. I had to pause and pick up. If you go back, you could probably listen to it and even figure out where it was. That crushed me in a bad way, but at the same time, it wasn't just about being sad that Tunch was gone and what he meant to this organization. It was also being so happy that we could talk about such an amazing man, but yet we have to do it now in the past tense.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Sure does. And, you know, I know for you, it was probably like me. I mean, totally remember Tunch Ilkin playing, you know, left tackle in the 80s on a lot of really mediocre Steeler teams. Tunch was one of the better players.
Yeah.
On a lot of those mediocre teams. And then when he went into broadcasting, just surprised the daylights out of me with how good he was.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, was just fantastic. So then it was able to continue to live along, you know, and Tunch being a part of, you know, the Steeler family, go from player to the broadcast booth. And just the stories that you heard and the things like that. Honestly, Dave, I was reading all the, you know, things people were saying here and there on Twitter, and I couldn't keep from crying just while reading those. So I don't know how you pulled off the podcast, but
yeah, it was.
Tunch is going to be missed. I'd like to say that everything that happened with him, oh, too bad, this or that. You know what? Too bad for us. Tunch never looked at it like he was, you know, like he was inflicted with something. He looked at it as just another stepping stone process, part of his life. And we're going to miss him. It's going to be real hard for me listening to, you know, it's been a little bit in the preseason, listening to the games, you know, on the radio.
I listened to the last game on the radio because I didn't want to listen to the Panthers announcers.
And I love Wolf.
Yeah.
But
it's just, I'll never forget.
Put it this way, Dave. You don't remember, but I do. Okay. I remember when it was Jack Fleming and Myron Cope.
No, that's too far before me.
Too far before you. But I remember Jack Fleming calling games. And then I remember when it switched to Cope and Hillgrove, and I missed Jack Fleming.
Yeah.
And then when we lost Myron Cope, I missed Myron Cope.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I'm going to feel listening to games now.
Yeah.
I'm going to miss Tunch Ilkin on the radio.
Yeah. We had coverage at BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. Jeff Hartman did a great letter from the editor that was out on Sunday, I do believe, that, talks about it. He had talked about it before, about losing his best friend to ALS. If you could just Google, because it's much further down with all the news and everything going on. If you just Google it, you can find that. If you really want to check that out, it was really, really touching. But I just wanted to give you a chance to say something about Tunch. I did the Break News podcast. I don't want to, we have a lot going on here, but I just wanted to give you that opportunity. So thank you so much for sharing that, Rich. I mean, this is the family show. This is the brothers doing the podcast. So when you lose a member of the Steelers family, it affects us all. So with that, let's get to the Steelers.
I can't say this in true Tunch Ilkin fashion. What would he want from us doing a Steelers podcast with the first game of the season coming up this Sunday? Mm-hmm. He'd want us to sure, we can take a minute, pay our tribute to him, but he would say, get on with Steeler football.
Let's talk about this offensive line is what he's going to say, which we're going to get to here real soon. But just a few things Labor Day, I was complaining. I'm like, I think this holiday is named after wanting me to have to labor so much for Steelers news, because for those of you that haven't listened to Let's Ride, Jeff Hartman is actually getting some time at the beach this week. He's still contributing, doing his podcasts and everything else, but I'm basically handling all the breaking news unless Jeff happens to be around this week. And my goodness, Monday was crazy. I thought, okay, we got some new jersey numbers. That's going to be good enough. No, that was just the beginning. We got jersey numbers. We got TJ Watt not changing how he was practicing on Monday. Monday was the day I thought was a maybe, because it really wasn't getting into week prep, but it was the week of the game, if you know what I mean. So that one was a maybe for me. I wouldn't have been surprised either way with that one. And we'll of course get into TJ Watt here a little bit more. But then we had depth chart. I can't even remember. There was just so much new. Oh, captains. The Steelers chose their captains and and all that. But the cool thing about the depth chart, and I'm glad they came out on Monday, because today we get to talk about now how Coach Tomlin had his first Tomlin Tuesday, his press conference leading up to the game, where he talks about how the team that they're playing is the best team ever to put on a uniform for a while, and then goes on and talks about stuff with the Steelers. But he had to answer some stuff about the depth chart, which was interesting, and we're going to get into some of those things as the topic of the show rolls around. But just to get into what Coach Tomlin talked about today, man, oh man, he was asked about a lot of players, but he was asked more questions about TJ Watt than what he was asked total number of different players, I think it seemed like. But it was deservedly so. I'm shocked he didn't bring it up in his opening statement. So, but it was so funny because he answered everything about as much as he could, and a couple people just kept circling back and trying to ask stuff, and there's like, I've said everything I can say about it, but did you get to either check anything on the website or hear the press conference? I know you had a crazy day.
No, because today, between having to hustle back into work and we had new student orientation going on today, and I had to duck out early because Kyle had a golf match. And
match. Yeah.
Did not get to listen in. So
So bottom line was, when it comes to TJ Watt, Coach Tomlin says he's confident they'll get a deal done. But his thing is he fully expects TJ Watt to be a full participant, like the other 52 members on the active roster tomorrow, Wednesday, for practice. Nobody that's on the active roster, they're expected to not be available for practice, and that included TJ Watt. They kept asking more things. You're going to have to limit his snaps. Is he going to have to hit this week? All this other stuff. And bottom line is, Coach Tom's like, TJ Watt's the man. If he comes back and practices this week, he's going to be ready for Sunday, and they'll make those other calls as they come. So that's the TJ Watt story. There was something else interesting on Twitter. I'm going to ask you about this. Jerry Dulock of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, who some people still want to criticize because he said Watt was going to sign after the last preseason game. You know what? It's right now, it's still after the fourth preseason game. That's one. People just took it to mean immediately. He didn't say immediately, and also he didn't say it was from an inside source. He was giving his opinion. You and I talked about this on here before.
We did. We talked about that on this show.
But one thing that Dulock brought up is he's like, if Steelers were negotiating with somebody during training camp, they finished off deals once the season started. But it hasn't been since 1995. It's been a long time. So I guess what he's saying is it's not impossible, but that's just kind of how things are going. Bottom line is they're going to work things out. The way I look at it, one way or the other, the most important thing is getting TJ Watt on the field for 2021, having him be happy with the Steelers happy with him. I just want everyone to get along. How about you? You just want everyone to get along? Huh?
Oh, whatever.
Yeah.
Yes. It's going to be.
Yeah. So
I can't talk a whole lot because, I'm, believe it or not, tired of everything in even our Slack channel. It's like everybody's so divided on everything. It's like, just stop worrying about things you have no control over and just wait and things will happen and then you'll know.
And everything that's reported is exactly what we thought. It's exactly what the Steelers have had problems with in contracts recently, is the amount of guaranteed money beyond the first year. The Steelers don't want to guarantee money beyond the first year. But you know what? Up until March, the Steelers have never used void years in a contract. So the bottom line is the Steelers just have to realize, you do things a certain way until you have to change because everything else is changing. I'm not saying they're going to, but I'm just saying, even if it's not with TJ Watt, they're going to have to change. They've got to be
thinking about it.
They've got to do it eventually. The question is it now? Is it later? All these other things, I'm going to leave that up to them. Let's talk some more football.
Let's do that.
So we're ready to go. Mike Tomlin, we're going to come back to some of the stuff he said when we get into the topic of the show tonight. Okay. And so many people are divided about TJ Watt. Do you want to know the truth? There's a good chance that in 1 or maybe 2 weeks from now, this is going to be the last thing on our mind.
Yep.
This is a really big deal right now, but it's going to be the last thing on our mind before you know it.
It's what's out there to talk about. We're not playing game. Yeah, we haven't played a game in almost 2 weeks, and we're getting ready to play our first regular season game, and we need stuff to talk about, and this is what's out there. Oh, that's okay, great, but really, I don't feel like talking about it. I'd rather talk about the game.
And honestly, I have no problem with TJ Watt not playing in the preseason. Do you know how many times he's been injured during last year they didn't have preseason, but you know how he's missed time. The year before, he missed the majority of the preseason due to injury. I'd rather him just be, don't get injured. Be ready for week 1. Okay. I'm fine with that. Imagine this, if he signs, I don't know, let's make up a number. Let's say he signs a 5-year deal. Every year from now on, he's going to be under contract and in training camp and practicing and preseason games and things like that. This is just one chance to not have to do it. You might as well just, I really don't blame him. That's just what I'm saying. I really don't. So what we're talking about tonight is this. And that is, can the Steelers bring it all together for week 1? There's a lot going on with this team. There's a lot of improvements, a lot of question marks, a lot of things that even sometimes it seems like the team doesn't know about, what we as fans don't know about. And we don't know if they're going to have it all worked out or how long it's going to take to work it out. The question is, I don't know. Let's answer the overall question right away. I don't know if they can bring it all together for week 1. The question is, can they bring it all together enough for week 1? Is that really the ultimate question, Rich?
Correct. Yes. The ultimate question is can they bring things together enough in week 1 so that they can have a chance to win a football game?
Exactly. And not only that,
Now,
this is one of their most difficult games on the schedule. It really is. It really is.
The answer to that question, you can look at it two ways. Okay. I love it where I know, at least he's been out there on the Slack channel because he just put something out a minute ago, was Brian Anthony Davis. He would be saying, oh, that's a typical Dave answer. And the easy way to say the answer to that question is why, yes, I think they could pull it enough together to win this game on Sunday. The question will just be, will they pull it together enough this weekend to pull off this game against the Bills?
I have no doubt in my mind. Seriously, listen now. I'm going to give you a classic Dave answer. You guys don't understand. You've got
more classic than that.
The more they talk about Dave answers, the more I feel I'm required to give them, even if I don't want to. Okay, so it's you all have made it a thing, so now it's a thing. All right, so if you complain about it, then you shouldn't have made it a thing. I have all the confidence in the world that the Steelers can win this game. I just don't know that they will.
Right.
That is really what it is. They have the tools and the potential, the word that Jeff Hartman hates, they have the potential to be absolutely fantastic. The question is, are they ready for that potential? Let's dive into a few of the specifics. Let's start. We'll start with offense.
Sure.
Let's start with offense. Okay. There are some things that we really aren't sure how much they're going to bring it together. Okay. Let's start with, I'm going to leave the obvious one for the second thing. I'm going to start with the talking point since, I don't know, maybe March. Okay. New offensive coordinator.
Yes.
Different offense.
Yes.
I just heard recently, I'll tell you this. We have a pretty interesting interview that'll be coming out this week on our audio only podcast platform. Make sure you pay attention for that because I'm someone producing. I got to hear something in there, but this is something I heard, and I heard from other places, is that the Steelers with this new offense, what's the same about it is some of the terminology. So they didn't have to change everything and make it all new for everybody right off the bat. They're using some of the same terminology under Matt Canada, but there's really a whole lot more to it. There really is. And the question is, with the Steelers not wanting to show too much in preseason, are they ready to hit the ground running with his offense? What do you think?
Yes.
Okay.
I think they are.
Do you think it's a big question?
It is a big question, but I think they are ready too. I think if they really would have felt they weren't ready to, you'd have seen a few more wrinkles being tried out in some of the preseason.
Yeah. So, I mean,
just for some more live action for it, you'd have seen a few more things. I think they've been working hard on it. I think they're ready. Will we see it all? Probably not.
No.
We won't, you're not going to see the whole playbook in this game.
I think that's what happened last year. You got everything out of the playbook by halfway through the season, and you had seen it all. There was everything was laid out on the table, and then defenses figured out what to do, and there didn't seem like there was. I mean, I'm being, I'm taking it to an extreme. It wasn't really that bad, but we're just kind of, if you understand what I'm saying. My thing is when it comes to if the Steelers, let's say they're going to put in different formations and different motions and things like that they didn't want to show in the preseason. Could it lead to illegal formations, false starts, and delay of games? That's the question for me. Is they kind of kept it a pretty vanilla, I think, in the preseason. So can they spice it up a little bit without those three types of penalties? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
So, I mean, I think that's ultimately what they need to do to bring it together. They need to be able to do that and be effective in there, and even without the penalties, communication. Okay. Communication's key. Now you got a new offense, you're running some different things. Ben's got to still be on the same page as his receivers and vice versa, right?
Right.
So these are things that I think over time, by maybe midseason or 2/3 of the way through or something, that the Steelers are going to be running on all cylinders. But the question, will they be running on enough cylinders to make a difference in week one?
Correct. It's not going to be all cylinders on week one.
So,
like I said, is it enough cylinders to power us to a win?
And
that's really all I care about. I don't care if it's on all cylinders.
Yeah.
I just want it on enough cylinders that we can get the W.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's kind of why I brought this one up first, because I think this might be one of the biggest keys to a week one victory is the Steelers offense going to look so different that the Bills aren't going to know what hit them? I'm not saying it is.
No.
But is that a possibility?
That could happen. Like, that could give us a real shot at walking out of Buffalo with the W if that happens.
And that is why when you do some of these fantasy football things, or even survivor football, like we were doing it behind the steel curtain, in order to win a signed Joe Hayden football, that makes week one really tough, because pretty much almost any team can beat anybody else week one, because you really don't know what to expect based on their changes, which I'm reminding you that Survivor League, BTSC, it's there. It's on the website. We are in our fourth league right now. We're over halfway full, our fourth league. So that means we've got over 350 people in there and ready to go. If you're not there, make sure you get to the website and check out that article. It's in the top 6 right now, because we keep refreshing it to keep it up there for people to be able to enter this contest. Well, I thought it was in the top 6. It's not. It's in the top. It's number 7. I was close. So just had to throw that in there now. Anything else you want to say about the offensive game plan? No, there'll be a game plan there, and really that's just going to come down to execution. If game plan execution is there for the offense, I think it really potentially gives the Steelers a really good shot in this game. That's the question mark, though, is how good is the execution going to be? Exactly. And part of that execution, let's get to the really big one on the offense, is going to come down to this young, not worked a whole bunch together offensive line. The offensive line. Now, with the depth chart coming out Monday, we know what the expected starting line is. I say expected because you never know. The Steelers still have 3 days of practice. You don't want to, something, there could be a problem. You don't want to, injury, things like this. Something could change. But this is, as we stand right now, your starting offensive line for this week goes right tackle Chukwuefor, right guard Trey Turner, center Kendrick Green, left guard Kevin Dotson, left tackle Dan Moore Jr. You've got 2 rookies starting on the offensive line. Then you've got a guard who started 4 games last year in his second year. Then you've got a 5-time Pro Bowler at right guard, but he had a real rough year last year, and it's his first year with the team. And then you've got the guy that didn't win the right tackle job last year, got thrust into it due to injury, and they thought they could move him to left tackle to do better. But the way it's all worked out, he needs to go back to right tackle. I will say real quick, moving Chooks back to right tackle is more about Dan Moore Jr. than it is Chukwuefor. I'll tell you that right now. Because although Chooks has not looked great at left tackle. No, he has not. But I'll also tell you this. Chooks left tackle versus right tackle, he hasn't looked fantastic either one. Yeah. Dan Moore looked great at left tackle and not good at all at right tackle. Yep. So pick which one actually has the word great with it, and we'll go with that one. Now we'll see how he does against, top-notch competition. But Coach Tomlin actually said something very interesting today. I'm going to see if I can find it to quote it exactly about Dan Moore Jr. Before I do that, anything you want to say specifically about this offensive line?
they're the biggest. Honestly, we're talking about stuff. They're one of the biggest question marks out there.
Yeah.
And they're really one of the biggest question marks when it comes down to offensive execution. That we were talking about. Do we get the delay of game penalties? Could be elsewhere, but typically your false starts are going to be your line, and and just how are they going to mesh together, and will they all make the right line calls and make the right blocks off of those calls? And there's still a lot of question marks.
Oh, absolutely, because
they answered some this preseason, but there were so many question marks about the offensive line that they could not all be answered in the preseason. Still looking for some of those answers.
And like when it comes to pass protection, you're really only as strong as your weakest link. You know what I mean? Like if you got a bucket full of water, it doesn't matter if the whole bucket is strong the whole way around. If you've got a weak spot on a seam, that's where the water's coming out. And it's the same kind of deal. I mean, you can try to, put some extra protection where that weak spot is, both, on the line and the whole bucket example. But that's just kind of how it works. Now, I want to read this quote from Coach Tomlin. It was about Dan Moore Jr. He was asked about his development, especially on the left side, since training camp opened. And Coach Tomlin said, he developed a lot, but I'd be remiss if I didn't say that he probably came in with more than we anticipated. He's gotten better throughout the course of this, but I think his floor was higher than anticipated, at least from my perspective. That's interesting. So what they're saying is they didn't expect Dan Moore to start where he was starting. So
which in some ways tells you they got a bit of a steal in the draft, because to be able to draft a guy at a certain position and realize he's better than you thought he was when you draft him at that position, good pick.
Yeah. Well, and
you got to get out there on the field and prove it. But right now they got to be thinking, wow, we were lucky to get this guy where we did.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at what the Steelers are putting out there from center and the left side. 3rd round rookie, 4th round second year, 4th round rookie. You're like, whoa, that could be a big area of concern. But the other thing you got to remember is you're also probably looking as that it's only going to get stronger over time. And this is another one of those things. Is it going to be good enough for week 1 as it continues to get better throughout the regular season? Does that make sense?
Sure does. So you would expect some of these guys that the play will continue to get better and they will continue to gel as a unit the more they play.
Yeah. That's
are they good enough now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's the thing. Coach Tomlin talks about this all the time. Every season, he's like, we've just got to get better. They always talk about, we got to be better. Ben Roethlisberger always saying, we got to be better. Bottom line is, he's like, you're constantly improving. You're just hoping to win along the way. And that's what the Steelers are hoping to do. It's going to be a tough task in Buffalo. Anything else you want to cover about the offense before we head on into the break and into or if it's a big topic, we could hit it coming out of the break?
Oh, yes. One thing, because we have a super chat.
Well, that. I mean, I said about the offense.
No, just hit the super chat.
Okay. The super chat. We already talked about this, but we'll bring it up
a little bit.
Okay. This is from Oz. Throws $5 in the tip jar. Says, do you think the Steelers' old school way of doing contracts will lose us, TJ? I'm at the point now where I bet they end up just tagging him. This is a lot of talk and a lot of speculation. And yes, the franchise tag comes into things, but if you didn't catch it, Jeffrey Benedict's on the Cutting Room Floor audio only podcast, which comes out Tuesdays today at noon, which I already listened to, he talked about this and is like, this isn't really what the Steelers want to do. The Steelers never just tag someone to expect them to play under the tag. When they tag them, it is expected in order to use it to sign them. Yep. That's next year. That's right. If they don't get it worked out between now, after the season, they even have up to March before they have to do things like that. I'm still even to a point now. It's funny because with the whole report we talked about with Jared Dulock, I'm to the point now where the Steelers are just like, well, maybe we don't have as hard a deadline as we say. So, but we said about the guaranteed money beyond year one, right? We already mentioned that.
Yep, we did.
That eventually the Steelers are going to have to get away from that because it's
not how business is being done in today's NFL.
Not how business. It's just how contracts work. It's just how they're going to get there. Just like when they were put in a big crunch with the salary cap this year, they started using void years, which they had never done before. You only never do it until you do. But once you do, you've got to be ready to keep doing it, right? That's the problem. Right. I just don't know if they're ready yet. They're probably trying to hold off for as long as they can. But we'll see how that goes. Rich, we're going to go ahead and roll into our break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk some more about if the Steelers can get things together enough for week one in order to be successful. And then, of course, we got to get into our big question at the end. So if you're with us on the audio side, go ahead and click on over to part 2. If you're with us here on YouTube or Facebook Live, give us a few seconds and we'll be right back. Pittsburgh Steeler fans, welcome back to part 2 of the Scho Bro Show. This is Behind the Steel Curtain editor Dave Schofield coming at you again with me, as always, my big brother Rich. Rich, how you doing?
You know what? I didn't get to do it in the first half because you kind of changed the question coming to me. So I will start this half of the show saying, welcome to the Bro Show.
Welcome to the Bro Show. We are here. I mean, we can't, we don't have any victory to breathe in because the Steelers haven't played, but they're about ready to. I mean, I was looking at, do you realize, I was going to say this for Stat Geek, but I'll go ahead and throw it out there. The Pittsburgh Steelers have not lost to the Buffalo Bills in a 1:00 kickoff since 1999.
Doomed it. When you say stuff like that, you jinx us all the time.
But what I'm saying, jinx.
I'm blaming you.
Jinx. What are you talking about?
If the Steelers lose Sunday, it is your fault.
No, yeah.
Jeez,
did he just say there's no such thing as a jinx? I'm sorry. I'm quoting How I Met Your Mother now. Bottom line is these teams, the reason I kind of bring that up is we know that, the Steelers have lost their last 2 matchups against the Bills. Because of the trajectory of these 2 teams, they've been playing in prime time. So the fact that this is a 1:00 game, and this is the national 1:00 game for CBS. I don't know. You don't care about things like that because you live in the viewing area. I actually get this game. Although I have 2 CBS stations where I live. One is out of Baltimore, one is out of Washington. So a lot of times they put the same game on both, which is really annoying because you can have more possibilities. They're not scheduled to have the same game on both channels because the football team is playing an AFC opponent. I'm pretty sure they're playing the Chargers. So they're on CBS. So they're on the Washington station. But the Baltimore station, as of right now, is scheduled to be Pittsburgh Buffalo because this is a key matchup. Some people are like, oh, if this was later in the season, it would get flexed. This would even be a game that networks would protect, that they wouldn't want to flex it. So this is kind of a big deal that they're playing a 1:00 game. I mean, I don't know if you have looked at the schedule to see what other kind of matchups are going on. Some people are big on, the Browns and the Chiefs, but I mean, this is one of the key matchups, wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah. Oh, this is a game everybody's got to love see coming right out the gate.
Yeah.
Especially with how the past couple games, Steelers Bills lately have been good games to begin with, and then take 2 playoff teams from last year and put them right up against each other week 1. Why not? Let's do it.
I'm going to tell you something because some people were talking about in the live chat earlier about the Steelers and the power rankings and where some people have them. I've seen them in 10th. I've seen them in 14th. I've seen some people put them in the 20th. I do the betting article, and I had that this morning at BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers, because the Pittsburgh Steelers are 6.5-point underdogs going into this game. The over-under, I think, just changed a little bit. I think it was 49. Now it's 48.5. But I get my information from Odds Shark. If I say there, Odds Shark. There we go. And they have consensus picks, everything. One of the newer things that they have there is they have some stuff on there by a company, I guess it's called Prediction Machine. And the only reason I'm bringing this up is because they have power rankings from Prediction Machine. Tell you what, this is the highest power ranking I've seen for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They have the Steelers and the Bills as the only matchup in the NFL this weekend. Well, wait, that's not true. The only AFC matchup in the NFL this weekend that has single-digit power rankings going up against each other. The other one, because I forgot about this game. This is a pretty premier game. You've got Packers Saints, and they actually have Packers and Saints as their number 2 and number 3 power rankings. But they have the Pittsburgh Steelers in their power rankings. They have them at 4 and the Bills at 5. That's crazy. They have Chiefs 1, Saints 2, Packers 3, Steelers 4, which I find very interesting. You know, they have the Ravens and Browns outside the top 10.
Come back to me and talk power rankings, any of them, after about 4 weeks. Because honestly, preseason power rankings are a joke.
Exactly, because my whole point is when they're as high as 4 and as low as 22, that just means no one has any clue what they're talking about. They have no clue what they're talking about. Okay, and I know what you're saying. I'm like, someone just said the Saints. That's crazy, but that's what they have. That's just basically what they have from how they have everything listed out. So this might not be a very good source. I've never seen them before until they started throwing them in here with the stuff with Odd Shark. But this is a key matchup. And that's just what I was talking about. Is the Steelers have a lot of these this year because they play the Chiefs. Of course, every year they play the Ravens. Now you can actually see the Browns are at least a game, So you have some of these key matchups. I mean, and then the Steelers here before too long, they're going to Green Bay. That's another one. So they have a lot of these big matchups. So this is I'm going to say it now. This is a good test for week 1, but it's this. The sky is not falling if the Steelers do not win this game, right?
No.
Yeah.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
If the Steelers lost this game 45-0, I'd be a little bit
exactly.
worried.
It depends how they win or lose the game. Correct?
Right. Yeah. If this is one of those 27-24 games or something like that, okay, is it great? No. Is it going to sting? Yes. Is it the end of the world? Season over? No. But if it's 45-0, oh my gosh, I don't want to do a podcast after a game like that next week because, someone will have to make sure I've taken my blood pressure medicine because of all the yelling I'll be doing. So,
I mean, if they opened up at home against one of the teams ranked at the bottom, like the Jets or something like that, and then they lose, that's when you flip out. But the Steelers are playing a quality opponent on the road. So it's really going to show us a lot of what they're about. And like I said, it depends on how they win or lose the game. Because if the Bills come out and have 8 turnovers and the Steelers, get by because the Bills miss a field goal to win the game at the end, that's not going to instill a lot of confidence either. You know what I'm saying?
It's not.
So it really, to me, the Bills are better coached than that. I don't see that happening, But at the same time, it really depends on how the game is played. It honestly sounds an awful lot like preseason week 4 when we were saying, the Steelers are going out here. They're not playing their starters. You want to see them be competitive. It doesn't matter if they win. And this isn't that it doesn't matter if they don't win the game because it's the regular season. It's important. But then they came out and played the way they did. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, someone. Oh, let me make sure I get it up here because I'm gonna pull it up. So, if someone, if I had that 45-0 game like I'm talking about, Steelers Pittsburgh said knee-jerk reaction will be one giant swearing rant. Oh yes, the swear jar will be full.
Yeah.
My kids' college will be paid for in full in cash by what the swear jar looks like.
Exactly. So let's get into some more of these things that we said that. When we were asking the question of can the Steelers bring it all together for week 1?
Yep.
The defense. I mean, we're just
Yep.
talking. I mean, in order to talk about that more, we were set it up a little bit even more in this half. Is that there's a lot going on with this more than just points for, points against, and everything else. So the defense. What does the defense need to bring together in order to have a greater chance of winning this game on Sunday?
Okay.
Anything particular you want to start with?
Sure, why not? Let's go with the obvious first.
Okay.
Okay. Is Trent Jordan Watt on the field?
There you go. That's, we talked about it a lot in the first half. We talked about the contract situation. Coach Tomlin says he expects him to practice tomorrow. He said they even asked, well, are you expecting this because of conversations you've had? And he's like, I'm not telling you about conversations we've had. He says, I'm leaving that between us. So I don't blame him there, but Coach Tomlin has all the confidence that he's going to be practicing tomorrow and available week 1. The question is how available, but also Coach Tomlin's like, man, I've got no reservations about added snaps to Melvin Ingram III. Very happy with what he's brought to the Steelers. And Jeffrey, I already talked about Jeffrey's on the cutting room floor. Something else that he brought up, I'm pretty sure it was on that one. I've listened to so many podcasts today, I can't remember which one it is. I think it was Jeffrey. I'm giving credit to Jeffrey, even if it's not Jeffrey, because he's got a great show.
Jeffrey, because Jeffrey deserves credit.
Exactly. And it was the Steelers wouldn't have kept only 4 outside linebackers if they didn't expect Watt to play.
Yep.
They would have kept more.
That's still a question.
Yeah. So, yes. I'm going to bring up the question of, because of last year.
Yep.
Last year, Jeffrey Benedict and I did a Steelers Vertex after the Bills game, and it was basically, I think was it right after the game, or was it even in the offseason? I can't remember. It all runs together. 2,200 articles in 3 years. We'll do that to you. What happened with the Bills is they scored 2 touchdowns coming out of the second half, and that was the difference in the game. And they moved the ball so well, all they did was move Stephon Diggs to the other side to get him away from Steven Nelson and on Cam Sutton. And that's what they did.
Yep.
And then the Steelers adjusted. Well,
after 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, after 2 touchdowns. But, there's no Steven Nelson now. But there was no Joe Hayden in that game. So now you got Joe Hayden back. But you really have to question what's going on at the cornerback position, especially with everything going on with the sub package. I did an article on it today where Coach Tomlin basically laughed about it and said, hey, you notice that we didn't put a slot corner position on the depth chart? Yeah, we did that on purpose. But he didn't just say it. He's like, because I'm playing it close to the vest. In other words,
I don't have to tell you, so why should I?
Well, the thing is, people are like, is it that he doesn't know? They still aren't sure. They're still trying to work it out. Or even better, do we have to know? Because in telling us, you're also telling the Bills.
Correct.
Let the Bills have to plan around it. Now, I've said that I think the Bills are a very well-coached team. There's a chance that once the Steelers show what they're doing in sub-package football, they will make halftime adjustments.
Yes, they will.
So you have to look at that. The Bills are good at making halftime adjustments. They're very well coached. So that's something that's interesting. But why tip your hand if you don't have to? So I'm kind of happy, but at the same time, does it really instill a lot of confidence, does it? Because we don't really know what they're going to do.
Nope.
Okay. Are you feeling
that was one of the things on my list? Yes, for the defense. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
The first one, the obvious one that I brought up with Watt, and then that was the second one. What are we doing with corner? Again, they could have a plan, and it could go just as perfect and wonderful as we could hope for.
Okay, I'm ripping off.
But the fact that that's been a question.
Yes, it's been a question all offseason still.
And we're feeling we haven't gotten the answer yet. That means it's still a question going into the first game.
And something that Coach Tomlin had to answer about was newly acquired cornerback Akello Witherspoon. And the question is he even going to be up to speed enough to have a helmet this week? And Coach Tomlin's answer is like, We'll see. I'm not looking for him to be an answer in week 1. I don't know it, many times.
He could be, because Coach Tomlin said we'll see.
Yeah. We'll see. I mean, you didn't expect, how much did we expect from Minkah Fitzpatrick his first week with the Steelers?
Yeah.
And boy, oh boy, did he come out. Now it's a little bit different because
Yeah.
free safety, they could just kind of say, okay, you do this and everything else will work around you. It's not as easy to do that at corner. So I don't know how, I still have flashbacks of Justin Gilbert and Brandon Boykin where the Steelers made trades for cornerbacks after the preseason, and they never got up to speed ever the whole season. So that's still being burned by that still in the back of my mind. I don't think this is the same for some reason. I don't know why I do it. But once again, I'm going to rip off Jeffrey Benedict because if you're not listening to, is it From the Cutting Room Floor? Whatever the cutting room floor is, it's great stuff. And he dove into how when teams come out in 11 personnel, which is the most common personnel grouping in the NFL, that's 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 receivers. When they come out in that, the Steelers have often been keeping their base defense, which means they don't pull the nose guard and bring in another corner. They've been going at it with base defense, and you can either, use a linebacker. I know people here like linebacker in the slot. What are we going to do? The other option was, he says, is having Terrell Edmonds come up and line up on that guy. And he's saying when you do that, the Steelers' defensive front is just, they've got numbers. It's one. When if you keep that sub package, or that base personnel in that package, you basically have 1 free person on each team. The quarterback on offense and the free safety on defense. Everybody else is match up. That's just what it is. So, and with the Steelers defensive front, Jeffrey talked about this. No one there to double Cam Hayward. No one there to double Watt. No one there, to do those kind of things. He said, of course, Stephon Tuitt, which unfortunately it's still going to be 3 games until we get to see him. But that, because that's another thing of weathering this storm and getting it all together, has to do with the injuries. So it's going to be real interesting to see how this defense plays certain things. And I like the fact that they're trying to be as secretive as possible, until I saw someone comment on my article that said, all the Bills got to do is wait for Keith Butler to talk this week, because I'm sure he'll lay out the whole game plan for them. Because he does have a tendency to say a little bit too much about stuff. So, anything more you want to say about the corners? I've been talking an awful lot about it.
No, I'm right. I got one more.
Okay.
Yeah. And I bet it's out there on your radar too, because the questions we still don't have answered are still a question. Some things to be answered going into this first week is still at inside linebacker.
Yeah, and is Devin Bush up to speed?
Yeah,
and
up to full game speed. And by that means, can he play all the snaps he'd usually play?
I don't know that he's ready to do that, and it's okay if he's not. What I'm more worried about is his confidence in his knee. Because if he's only moving at 95%, that's, for Devin Bush, that's a big deal, if you know what I mean. So I'm okay if he can only play 75% of the snaps and they have to do something else. I would rather have 75% of the snaps of Devin Bush going 100% than I would of Devin Bush playing 100% of the snaps going at 85%. Does that make sense?
That's sure do.
Yeah. So, but you're exactly right. We don't know which you have from Devin Bush. You don't know how well he's meshed with Joe Schobert.
Correct.
So,
that's really what it comes down to for me is how much time have Bush and Schobert spent together? Have they started to what I want to say, meld in? Are they getting
together?
There you go, into a unit of inside linebackers. If that answers, if we get an answer to that early on and they're great, then good for us. And look out Buffalo's offense. But,
Yeah.
If not, again, you don't have to be at skies falling yet because these guys just haven't had a whole lot of time. But, you'll hope it gets better. But again, I just don't want to see it as a crash and burn type situation.
Exactly. So, I mean, at the same time, you look at the Bills, that this is week 1 for them too. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't watch them in the preseason. I know one of their games, they absolutely shellacked somebody. But with the Steelers, I hate to bring this up.
Are you going to jinx this again?
No, I'm not going to jinx this, but I'm going to say it. There's so many reasons to be overconfident and overcritical of this team at the same time.
Yeah,
you could be completely overconfident of like people are unproven and things like that, or whatnot, or you could just be that did I say overconfident? That's overcritical, okay, or overconfident of like, oh, but look at what this team did in the little bit they were together. In the preseason, the Steelers played 4 opponents, and you know how many wins those 4 opponents had combined? 1. The only win of any opponent they had in the preseason was the Panthers beating the Steelers. They didn't win any other preseason games. The Lions didn't win any other preseason games. The Eagles tied 1, but didn't win any other preseason games. And the Cowboys didn't win any preseason games. So, but at the same time, it's the preseason. So,
correct.
So there you go.
There are no trophies given. No trophies given out for winning the preseason.
Exactly. So before we get into, our end and predictions and open it up to you all, a couple other things, and I kind of just mentioned the one about bringing it together is the whole notion of injuries. Anthony McFarland, he's on injured reserve. Don't know how much that impact. It would be nice to have that. I don't know where he's going to fall on the depth chart of running back, even if he was healthy. You know what I'm saying? Although Steelers fans liked to see him there. I mean, Steelers fans don't want to see Benny Snell as the number 2. They'd rather see him as the 4 with McFarland back, but yet Snell's listed at the 2. It's still really about Najee Harris. Zach Banner makes it a little bit nervous and of not having him at right tackle, but at the same time, how do I say this? Zach Banner being out might have given a chance for Dan Moore to show what he can do. And if Dan Moore goes Kevin Dotson, I don't see them making the same mistake 2 years in a row. And pulling him out just because other people are back. You agree?
What's funny is Dan Moore playing next to Kevin Dotson. I'd like to see what that side of the line could end up doing.
It's exciting to see.
Dan Moore goes Kevin Dotson next to Kevin Dotson going Kevin Dotson.
Yeah.
That could be fun to see.
But what I'm saying is Kevin Dotson balled out, and yet if other people were healthy, they played over top of him. I don't know that they made the same mistake 2 years in a row. I don't know if that was a Tomlin thing, a Fichtner thing, or a Surratt thing. But my thing is, if Zach Banner's going to miss 3 games and then he comes back and makes this line get better, I mean, I honestly feel better. I know people are like, Banner's not proven. I feel better with Chooks as the swing tackle right now. If Banner, I mean, he only played 12 snaps against Carolina, but looked good in those 12 snaps. So there's still some question marks there, but he's out. The biggest one is Stephon Tuitt. It really is. Don't know how long the knee is going to be an issue, and it's still also personal. I mean, don't know that Stephon Tuitt was going to be ready to play even if the knee was fine based on everything going on in his life. So I'm not going to discredit that. I'm not going to say it's a problem. I can't fathom what he's going through. I don't know that it's all about the knee. I don't know that it's not all about the knee. So don't know when Tuitt's going to come back into it, but
you're funny.
Come back into it.
Tuitt come back into it.
But a full strength Stephon Tuitt is a game changer. And the Steelers, I don't know that they were going to have a full strength Stephon Tuitt anyway, but you know that you don't. So to me, that's the biggest loss injury wise. Gotta say a little bit because though you don't want the game to come down to it, but can new specialists make sure that they have it brought together? You know, we all love Big Press with his punting. Is the holding going to be good?
Yep.
Is the snaps going to be good from Christian Kuntz? Okay. These are all things, guys playing their first NFL games. Are they going to be, are they going to have it the way they need to have it for that's a big deal. I would love to play my first NFL game. You know what I'm saying? So just things to think about. What do you have to say about that, Rich?
All valid points, all things to be thinking about. That's
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember. We went into last year with some questions unanswered that we were still looking for answers for, and I felt like we got great answers to those questions to help us start out 11-0. I just feel that there's even maybe not as big of questions in some areas, but because there's so many more questions, it's hard for me to get a full grasp on how this is going to play out on Sunday.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and the thing is, they could bring together all these things, and the Steelers defense could get the big shutout of the fourth quarter, and the Steelers could, protect Big Ben the whole game great, move down the field, score that touchdown to send it to overtime, and then have a bad snap. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It only takes one little thing of not coming together that could completely derail. And trust me, the only reason I use that as an example is because Steeler fans know how much one snap can change everything.
Oh my God.
That's what we've been living for 9 months.
Please not have it to start the game.
Yeah. Okay. So that's it. I'm going to bring this one up just because I want to say it. I said, Faustino Flores says Moore and Dodson will be a problem. My question is, are they going to be a problem for the Steelers, or are they going to be a problem for their opponents? I'm
right.
I'm hoping that it's a problem for their opponents, but I'm not sure which one you meant. But I just like that. Rich,
maybe they're not sure which one they meant.
They're not sure. They might not be sure either. It could be, yeah. I'm excited. I'm excited about the optimism, but at the same time, I'm like, when else I was excited? I was also really excited for the Steelers starting off 2019. I'm like, just think if they could go into New England and make a statement. They sure did make a statement in that game. I'm not looking for that. It was not a good statement, but but even see how much that season changed. So these things are coming together, will continue to hopefully come together as the season goes on. We'll just see how it is for week 1. Rich, you ready to do this?
I am. Let's get to it.
You have to. Now, I don't do this here.
I know.
Because I have to save it for the preview Thursday night. So if you're not, make sure you come back Thursday night for myself, Jeff Hartman, and Brian Anthony Davis on the Steelers preview. Rich, before we bring it up for Ev, okay.
Everybody, don't put them out
there. I
there.
have to say what Faustino said. He said for the other team, Dave.
Okay.
Love the idea of them to say. I agreed. I just was worried that you were saying the other thing. I agreed. That's great. So what we do every week during the regular season is we ask even the off season, we ask a big question. But what we do in the regular season, we ask a score prediction. Now, don't put your score in the live chat yet. If you're new to us here, I will bring up and ask you all to give your score. Rich will give his score. Then once I put it up in the live chat, you all type yours in. I will bring up your score. If you just have numbers, I'm going to assume you mean Steelers, but it's easier if you actually tell us the teams. Rich, what is your score prediction for Sunday at 1:00 against the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo?
I've been pondering this for quite some time, for a couple days. And believe it or not, do you want to know what I did before I went to sleep last night?
What'd you do?
Oh, I forget whose story it was about, but I'm sure it was about TJ Watt because that's where all the conversation went. And when I went to the story, there were like 230 some.
Over 300 comments. That was my story.
No, it was 230. It was 230 some when I got in there.
It was 300 some this morning.
260 some by the time I got through them all and read everything. I went through and read all those last night.
I couldn't do it. It was too much.
There was good and bad and ugly. Everything didn't even focus on Watt. There were some other things that went on talked about, and and as we did with the show here tonight, there are some question marks going on. So for me, this is one of those where I could see the Steelers coming out and playing really well and walking out with the win, and I could see the Steelers coming out and giving one of those New England games of 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But I'm going to put it somewhere in between that. Okay. I will say Steelers play well, do have a few glitches on some of the things we talked about.
Before you say it, for those of you,
I know everybody's putting their
bring them up.
There,
got it. No, you know what? I'm putting you in timeout.
There you go.
No, that's Tate Boys. He's on with Brian on 2 a.m. show, so I can't do that.
Okay.
Go ahead, finish up.
Final score. I love a nail biter in this one. 24-23 Buffalo.
Okay. So the Steelers cover, but don't pull out the win. Come really close, and people are going to start talking about them.
Play well on the road, cover the spread, but don't quite come up with enough to win.
Gotcha.
So,
24-23
Buffalo.
It's in the live chat. I've got the score. So many people are ready to go. I'm sure because a lot of people silenced themselves on the live chat waiting for it. So here we go, and it explodes. Here we go.
Oh, that's what would happen. It'll jump.
George Teston, he says Steelers 27-24.
That's hilarious. George, I wanted to go with that score.
Okay, Ryan Kellerman, 31-27 Bills. Small Ben 7. Oh, geez. 31-28 Bills. Frowny face. Okay. Cree says Bills 26. Steelers 14. But he says it could be because of turnovers. That's almost the same score as what it was last year. Wasn't it like 26-15 last year?
I think so.
That. Tyler W says 21-20 Bills. Okay. Steel Dog 88 says Steelers 16, Bills 14. See, the lower the score is, the more I could see it.
Yeah.
I get that.
The Steelers winning.
Yeah.
Yes.
Christopher 11 says 27-24 Pittsburgh. Notice almost everyone so far has this as a close game, and I can see that. Okay. Lumberzack says 24-17 Steelers. Bully Mob Kennel, the artist formerly known as Solarverse, says 24-13 Steelers. There we go. Monster 19 says 24-17 Steelers. And Dennis has 35-27 Bills. He's got the high scoring going. Okay. Brian Blackstock says 27-23 Steelers. Justin Conway.
No. Steelers.
Sorry. I'm trying to read ahead. Justin Conway says 21-30 Buffalo. Okay. Bo says 27-20 Steelers, because he didn't say it, is what I'm assuming. Brian Brown says 27-10 Steelers win. Bills are overrated. I might say, if anything, the Bills defense could be a little overrated from what they have thought to be in years past. But you know what? They haven't played yet this year. That's what we're going to say. No one's played yet. We got to see what they're going to do. Awesome stuff. 1983. Steelers 24, Bills 21. Okay. Stacy Lynn says Steelers 24-23. So she had your same score, opposite team winning.
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to say Clarence. He didn't give a score. Says Steelers by 3 on a line field goal in closing minutes. Okay. Steelers Pittsburgh says 27-24 Steelers. Okay. Kathy says Steelers 17, Bills 13. Faustino says 27-26 Steelers. These are some good scores. We got to remember these. Okay. Yep. Michael O'Malley says 35-17 Steelers. That might be the biggest margin of victory that we've seen so far. Mark Tobin says Bills 30-17. George Rice says 27-17 Bills, unfortunately. David says 27-20 Bills. Kyle Johnson says 24-30 Buffalo. I can't tell which ones are I's and which ones are L's. Is that Elijah? I'm going to say
Elijah the prophet.
The prophet. That's it. Steelers 24, Bills 32. Okay. Terry Glover says 27-24 Steelers. Clarence did give a score then. He said 17-14 Steelers after he said the 3-point game. Okay. Jerry Cherry Band says he predicts Josh Allen spends more time on the ground than on his feet, and 27-17 Steelers. Okay. Kelvin, I always messed this up before.
I know.
Kelvin Colbert Sr. says 27-24 Steelers. Harris with a game-winning touchdown. Yeah, we've talked so much about Najee Harris in the offseason. As the game's getting here, I don't feel us talking about it as much. Okay. Okay. Christopher Hockenberry says 27-24 Steelers. Presley will be using his leg by the end. Okay. Tate Boy said his bad on the quick trigger. I know. I just give you a hard time. He says Steelers 26, Bills 23. Tom. Okay. Yeah. I don't know if it's a silent J. Okay.
Oh, whatever.
It's yogging. Sorry, it could be a silent J. Sorry, I had to throw my Ron Burgundy in there. 31 Bills, Steelers 17, but hopefully it's the other way around. That's how I feel. If you're going to go against the Steelers, it's not that you are hoping they're going to lose. You're just saying what you honestly expect. Okay. Henry Manuel says 34-31 Steelers. Both teams in the 30s. Never ender. 27-23 Steelers, thanks to turnovers and special teams. Okay. Sundar V or Sundar 5? I don't know.
I don't know. Good question.
Don't know if we're going all Roman numerals. Well, the fact that they didn't use Roman numerals as their score, we'll say it's V. Okay. Bills 24-17. Jeff Lauderdale says 34-24 Steelers, because he says the Bills haven't played the Steelers at full strength in the Josh Allen era. Okay. Are they this week? We'll see. I think Trent Jordan Watt's really going to depend on that. I'm looking for Elijah the Prophet. He wanted to give a shout out for getting his name right. Okay. Jennifer says 24-17 Steelers. Ryan O'Toole says 21-17 Good Guys. That's Steelers, in case you didn't know. Wendell Wade says 17-21 Steelers. Okay. Do you see any more? Vincent Price says, hold on. Vincent Price says 10,000 Steelers, 21 Bulls. I think he meant Bills. Blake Mitchell Farrell says 2016. That's Steelers. Alex Flores says 29-17 Buffalo wins. Tom wants to know who replaces Tuitt on the depth chart. It was Chris Wormley. We hadn't mentioned that in the show. Nay, or is it knee or nay?
No, I don't. That's a good one. I don't know.
See, because your wife we call Nay, but she has two E's. I don't know.
Two E's. Yeah, so I'd say Nick Drews.
Nah. Okay. 35-27 Steelers. As the season goes on, we'll get these pronunciations better. I'll get these pronunciations. 24-21 Steelers by Richard Adamson. And Danny
just a couple more.
Hosher says 34-28 Steelers, or he says 27-17. He gave two. And is that Pinot Bourdon?
Yep.
31-19 Bills. Kevin. Wow, these are a lot. Kevin Osborne, 31-28 Steelers. And I think that's the end.
That did it. Yep. I'm calling it there.
Yep. I still think Trent Jordan Watt is playing like Steelers Pittsburgh said. The question is how much. We'll get a better indication tomorrow when I get to write my first injury report article in 9 months. Yay. There was other things we could have talked about tonight. There's so much. You know, you had the news today of Mr. Buttnaked get Rob signing to the practice squad of that purple team. Although they're expecting him to get moved up. They lost 2 running backs to the season-ending injury. So it kind of makes sense that they're going to be looking on the scrap heap for somebody. Lots of other things going on that we could have brought up. But you know what? All these things are being covered at BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. Make sure you check it out. Lots of great articles going on there. And we have so many podcasts coming at you. You should never be able to say, man, I wish I had another Steelers podcast to listen to. Just, subscribe. They're all there. Lots of them in audio only. Even our live YouTube shows end up in audio as well. This is how it goes. Rich, next week we get to get back to normal form.
Normal form.
We're the transition show. We finish up we talk about the game that happened. We transition to the one that's coming up. That's what we get to do next week. So until then, we just are going to come back after getting to see the Pittsburgh Steelers in regular season action. What do you think about that?
Oh, I'll tell you what. I'm looking forward to Sunday, writing the knee-jerk reaction to the article.
Yes.
Getting back here next week into regular form. Pittsburgh Steeler football this weekend. Can't wait.